welcome to another edition of Sukrit Talks. Today we're going to be talking about quite a heavy subject. We're going to be talking about depression. Depression is something which affects many people's lives out there, whether it be young or old, and I believe that, and we believe that, there's a lot of people out there who don't have a complete understanding that depression isn't a sign of weakness. It's genuinely a problem, a disease in a sense, something that people wake up with one day and they don't really know what's going on. So, today I'm joined by Monique again, and Monique has worked with a lot of people in the youth community especially, who have faced these kind of issues. And today we're just going to be delving deeper into this topic, and let's see how it goes. So, Monique, thanks for joining us yet again. So when it comes to depression, one thing that I've personally seen is that people are very naive in their understanding about it. A lot of people, they have very heartwarming messages towards people who have depression, but I feel that they don't really understand what it entails. In your experience, what do you feel is the most confusing part of making that connection between what depression really is and what it's kind of considered to be in society today?
I think there can be a real mismatch between exactly what you said, between what society thinks it might be and how the person experiencing it can actually feel about it. There is still, unfortunately, a lot of stigma attached to what depression is. Especially amongst young men as well, or young men generally. There's this idea that someone who's depressed can simply just get up and get on with things. And there's an expectation around that that people have a difficulty relating to, particularly if they haven't experienced it for themselves. So imagine for a moment that you can't get up. You wake up in the morning, you just simply cannot get out of bed. You have no desire to face the world. You don't feel like anything in your life is worth anything. And you just feel an overwhelming sense of grief, despair and sadness. That's a reality for a lot of people who are experiencing depression. And it comes in lots of different forms as well. And it's very much influenced by our sense of well-being, and when there's stigma attached to the label of depression as well, there can be a lot of people that are reluctant to actually go and seek help because of that fear of, being labelled as being depressed.
Yeah.
And for young men, we see a lot of young men, unfortunately, attempt to hurt themselves because they don't feel like anyone will listen to them. They feel like no one can relate to them. They feel like they're not a man, if they admit that they're depressed. And so, even in the health sector, you see a lot of males generally not engaging with the health system. And again, that's that whole, ideology around what it is to be a male and being macho, and that they can overcome something because everyone else can. So that can be really difficult for someone that's experiencing depression. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, do you feel that that's especially a really difficult thing, a difficult problem to solve as well in society, in that, you have this expectation that men can kind of, amongst men and in the male community, that, a man can kind of just get up and get on with it, as you said. And despite having that feeling, they're getting brought back by this feeling of sadness inside them.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, in that vein, what have you seen? What's what kind of deeper impacts have you seen that have on a person? Does it also start to impact, we know that depression impacts relationships very heavily, but are there other impacts, maybe deeper physical impacts that you've also seen?
Yeah, depression's really interesting. They've shown that there's been a lot of evidence to show that what we actually feel and what we think can actually have an impact on our physiology. So people can get all sorts of health complications as a result of their depression. Yeah.
So, like as we're talking about this, like depression, it all comes back to that thing where your state of mind really determines a lot of your being. If you're not feeling good about yourself, which depression does to most people, then, even physically you're going to start to feel like you're not 100%. And, in that sense, what kind of measures would you say should be taken by a person who is feeling that way? Like, what do you think that what do you think they can do if they're feeling this kind of depressive state?
There's a lot of things that people can do. One of the things that people often turn to when they do actually get help is to simply just go to a doctor and get medication. Like there's a lot of beneficial stuff that goes along with medication. There's been a lot of evidence to show that it can be really effective. But there's also stuff that you can do to supplement that treatment as well, particularly engaging in helpful communication, helpful positive communication, speaking to a professional, being connected as well is an important part of improving our sense of well-being and our health as well. And mindfulness and meditation, we've got Sukrit life, so engaging with others who have, gone through it and have come out the other side, and are able to relate to what you're experiencing as well. There's been so much evidence to show that supportive groups, especially ones that can relate to how you're feeling, can be quite beneficial as well. Yeah, but I think that the thing that I would caution people around is recognizing when a group is supportive and when it might not necessarily be supportive, and definitely, the Sukrit group would definitely be a positive group to engage with. Yeah.
Awesome. So as people on the outside, people who maybe are seeing a person going through this, what can we do to help them through that? Is it better to keep distance so that they can kind of have some breathing space?
Yeah.
Or should we ask them how they're going, like every other day? Like, what's a good kind of approach to go with when you're seeing someone go through this?
Yeah. One of the things that is really beneficial is to just ask that question, are you okay? And there's a reason why there's a whole movement here in Australia. There's a Are You OK movement that's shown that sometimes when people are asked that question, it actually makes them stop to actually think, am I okay today? And when people recognise that there's someone that actually cares about their well-being and actually has genuine interest with authentic and sincere dialogue around who they, around their concern about that person, it can actually make someone feel much more supported than someone simply saying, oh, you'll be right, because statements like that can be sweeping, and they can almost say to a person that how they're feeling is not normal and to get over it, and that can be really hard for someone that is feeling depressed. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us, Monique. It's just to conclude yet again. So, if you're out there, you're feeling like, the days are getting a little heavier, a little tougher. As Monique said, as we've discussed, there's people out there who can help you. And not only that, back yourself. You really can make it. There's people who have been through depression, they've come out of it, and they've achieved amazing things, and you're going to do that too. So, keep at it, keep smiling. And if you're someone out there who's seeing someone going through this, ask them if they're okay. Ask them how they're going. Genuinely care about them, and I'm sure that they will be able to come out of it quicker than you would have ever expected.